Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Botter. I'm with Ogden Avalanche. Tonight is going to be our second presentation in that series of three that we have so far to begin the season. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to get started here in just a sec. I want to take tonight and thank everyone that has been helping us so far. We have a ton of volunteers that have done some amazing work to get things going this year, especially with moving to an online platform and all of that happening. Anyway, thank you guys all so much for joining and tuning in. And let's go ahead and get this presentation started here in just a sec. Give me 1 second to get it pulled up. Thanks. Okay, and for tonight's presentation, we are going to talk about snow and avalanche journals and a few other snow nerd stuff. So let's start with our learning objectives. What I want you guys to come away from with this presentation is, first off, knowing what a snow and avalanche journal is. I want you to know why we use them. I want you to know why we track snow conditions and storm cycles. I'll give you guys a quick look at how weather can change the snow and how to keep a journal in 2020, 2021 using technology and some of the tools available there. So if we start with our avalanche triangle, right, we have three sides. This one's kind of boring, so maybe we add a mountain and some sun. We're going to start with our first side, and that's going to be avalanche terrain. The next is the avalanche trigger, and the third is unstable snow. In this avalanche triangle, we can really only control two of these. One is the avalanche trigger, which would be ourselves or our partner, and two would be the avalanche terrain. And the way that we control those is just avoiding those areas or avoiding avalanche terrain when it's not safe. The third part of that is the unstable snow, right? And this is the important one because we can't really control that. All we can do is track it and know where it is. So, what is a snow and avalanche journal to start, right? It's a checklist. We can use it as a map. We can use it to keep track of layers, right? We can use it as a system. We talked about the Avalanche Bibles in that last presentation we did. A book by Bruce Tremper, The Avalanche Essentials, talks about these different systems and how professionals use them, such as pilots or engineers. They can use them, these safety systems or systems to make sure things are done the same way every time. By keeping a snow and avalanche journal, we can create a system that works for us to know where that unstable snow is. You can do this the old school way with pen and paper. You can do it digitally, or you can keep a mental journal. People that can keep these mental journals are very impressive. I've never been able to do it, but they can tell you what the snow was like during a certain time of year, what storm cycles came in, what you'd see if you dug in the snow, and all the information like that. It's pretty impressive to watch these folks recall that information. I'm not that good, so I use kind of a pen and paper and a digital method to keep my snow journals. So why do we use them, right? We talked about record keeping. We talked about the avalanche triangle. So really what we're doing is we're mapping, right? And this is important because we can know where, right? Is it in a specific location or is it widespread? Is it isolated? What aspects we're expecting to see certain conditions on? What elevations we're expecting to see current conditions on? Right? We can also track these layers that we may have forgotten about. They get buried with new snowstorms. Remember, today's surface is tomorrow's buried layer. So we can start by tracking snow conditions and storm cycles. These graphs here on this other side, those are the plume graphs. Those come from weather.utah.edu. That's a great resource if you're looking to kind of dive more into weather and learn some about kind of how they project snow and stuff like that. There's a lot of links on ogdenavalanche.org, so if you want to head to that site to find out more, there's also a learning module from NOAA as well, or weather.gov. So we're going to start by tracking weather changes, right? Because weather changes the snow. Whether that's in the form of new snow or our favorite in February, rain, right? Seems to be every February we get a rainstorm lately. Or this is the sun that's affecting them, the wind that's affecting them, the temperature, right? Did it get really, really warm or did it get really, really cold? And surface conditions, right? These are all going to change because of weather. Let's start with new snow. What's about it, right? What do we want to know? Well, first off, we want to know, what did it cover up? How much snow did we actually get? Did we get 4 inches or did we get 14 inches? Did it come in really, really fast or did it come in really, really slow, right? And then how much water did that snow contain? Really, that's what we're thinking. When we think water, we think the weight. How much impact did that new snow have on the existing snowpack? Did we shock it? When we think about a snowpack, they don't like to be changed rapidly, right? Anytime we shock the system with a rapid change, we usually get avalanches or we get reactions from the snowpack. And so then we kind of think, what is that magic number? For me, I really start looking at about 1 inch of water over a 24-hour period, and that's going to be your snow water equivalent. But yeah, 1 inch of precipitation or water, that's going to be what you're looking at. So then we have our wind, right? Wind is an amazing transporter of snow. It can transport snow so much faster than it can fall out of the sky. And so really, it can move mass amounts very quickly. As it does this, it picks those snowflakes up and it kind of tumbles them across the surface of the snow. And it breaks off those different arms of those snowflakes. And what happens is these degraded snowflakes kind of pack in together and it forms a really dense layer. Sometimes when you're walking across these wind layers, they might sound hollow and they're really, really firm underfoot. You go from a really soft area and then instantly you're kind of like, oh, it's really firm and it sounds like I'm walking on styrofoam. You know, that might be a indicator that you're on top of a wind slab or a wind affected area. So the leeward side, right, if you're looking at the top photo here, you can see that cornice forming with snow blowing off of it. The leeward side is going to be the left side, or this deposition zone, right? That's kind of the leeward side. The windward side is where all the snow is being picked up and kind of dragged away by the wind. So next, let's talk about the sun and how it affects the snow. So the sun can form crusts, right? As the sun warms the snow surface, it's going to kind of create this wet, damp layer. Later, when that freezes overnight or when it gets cold later that day, it can form these little crusts, right? Which later become areas where weak layers form underneath them, or maybe it becomes a bed surface in the future. It can create rapid warming, right? Anytime we shock the snowpack, whether it's from the solar radiation or just the temperature coming up in general, it can create these avalanches. Usually, when we have the sun like that, it's going to be kind of a wet avalanche or from the snow getting wet, damp, and heavy, creating these avalanches. Season can affect this, right? Later in the season we go, March, April, we have these longer, warmer days, more intense sun. Where the slope is as far as aspect goes, elevation, right? Slope angle. If we have a really flat slope versus a really steep slope, when we think about solar panels laid out in a big solar array, they're at a very specific angle to be the most effective at capturing sunlight. So when we're thinking of these sun issues, right, we're mostly thinking wet slab and wet loose avalanches that they're going to cause. With that rapid warming, right, this can be caused a lot of different ways. This photo here, this is up by Pineview. It's a north slope. It got really, really warm this day, about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And these little point releases or wet avalanches were coming down. A couple of them had even spilled into the road. You can see this one has kind of filled in the area behind the barrier, this concrete barrier. And there was a couple of them that had spilled off into the road. So, this can be just a really warm day, intense solar radiation, too warm, too fast. We're shocking that snowpack, right? That's what we want to think of as a quick shock and creating kind of water moving in the snowpack that's lubricating and causing these avalanches. This can be caused by rain. This could be caused by warm winds or a Chinook wind. It can create wet slabs or these wet loose like in this photo here. And then we have freezing. This photo here, I think they called this the Charles Dickens storm. And it had rained really hard, high, and then it got really, really cold. And everywhere the snow surface was like this glass. As you'd walk across it, it sounded like it was breaking, right? So we have a freeze and thaw. This can sometimes strengthen the snowpack, right? That water moving through the snowpack can kind of create one solid layer. Or in this case, it could become a really, really bad bed surface that we had a lot of avalanches on later. Freezing, when we get these really cold and clear nights, it can drive faceting, right? Or we can get surface hoar, or we can get some near surface facets. All of these become layers later that we're concerned about, or the surface that gets buried that we're concerned about later. So we're wanting to track these and make sure we know where they are, when they were formed, to see how they're healing, really. Crusts also make a really good bed surface, like we talked about. So later, this can be kind of a catalyst for where we're going to have avalanches occur in the future. So when we're talking about rounding and fasting, I want to look at some pictures real quick. So when we think of rounding, right, this is a photo of a grain of flour. This represents stronger or healing snow. And so when you think about baking flour, if you pack it into a 1 cup or you pack it into a measuring container, once you've packed it in there and you turn it upside down, it's going to kind of maintain its shape. It's going to stick together well, right? We want to think of rounding grains in the snow as they're getting stronger, right? They're bonding well to their neighbor, and also they're kind of healing, right? They're getting better, sticking together. Versus facets. When we think of facets, right, we want to think of sugary, weak snow, or snow that won't hold together, right? It doesn't bond well to its neighbor. And we're thinking, okay, this is not the type of snow you could make a snow sculpture with. You can't make a snow castle or a snow mermaid. If you were going to have a snowball fight, it would be really bad. It'd kind of just be like throwing handfuls of snow at each other. And what causes that? Let me see if I can get the laser up here. As we have these really, really angular, sharp grains, right? And they don't bond well to each other. They kind of slide off of each other. And so as we're thinking about rounding and faceting, you should go out and do your own homework on this and do some more reading. But as you're reading that in the forecast or you're reading that in posts, that's what's happening. Is it's either those rounded grains like these ones that we looked at, or these facets. So we want to keep that in mind. So weather forms layers, right? It does this with a couple different things. It can do this through new snow. It can do this with the wind transporting snow that was already there and depositing it in a layer somewhere else. It can be from the sun, causing a melt crust or freeze crust. This rapid warming, again, freezing, rounding, and facets, right? So you can see in this picture on the left, there's all of this different layering in the snowpack. This was a few years ago. This was kind of the season that never showed up. I think it might have been 17 or 16. But we had this kind of dust storm that came in, or this smog layer in the air. And as it came in, that was deposited in the snowpack. And so we had this really gross layer that you could see trapped under kind of a few different crusts. But it was a great visual of seeing the different layers as they stack up in the snowpack. We have kind of 2 of those gross layers in there. So why is it important to track these layers? Think back to the things we've talked about already in this presentation and see, why might we want to know where those are, right? We'll take it back to our avalanche triangle. The 2 sides we can control, right? The trigger by putting ourselves in that area or putting our partner in that area, or avalanche terrain, right? We can avoid those things simply by not being there on certain days or times. The one we can't control for is that unstable snow, right? So we want to make sure that we know where it is and document it so that we can either avoid it or know where it is, and know that it's safe. So what does unstable snow look like? This is a quick video that's going to show you a old snowpack that was sitting there kind of rotting, and it had faceted. It was really weak, sugary snow on the bottom. And then we got a huge storm that I think dropped maybe 20 to 30 inches up on Ben Lomond. And it was just setting our season up to have these really large avalanches on this weak layer that was left over at the beginning. So what we're going to do first, this is just a snow test. We're going to isolate it. Sorry for the commentary.
Oh, on that surface core layer that they refused to believe was there?
Sorry about that, a little sassy. So we're isolating that column. On that second tap, you can see the column break and separate from the snow. As I pry it loose, look at all this sugary, weak snow. It won't make a snowball, it won't hold together. You can see that it looks like a cup of sugar. And the thumbs up there because that was kind of setting us up in the season to have a rough go. So, how do we do this with technology, right? It's 2020, it's about to be 2021. There's so much technology. We live in this era of information. We almost all have a cell phone that we're carrying around, right? Or we have access to the internet at work, at school, almost anywhere, right? So there's all this information we can gather really easy. You can gather it from our Instagram or our website. You can get it from the Utah Avalanche Center's forecasts, their observations, their website, their Instagram. You can surf the internet and read all of avalanche.org or so many other resources, weather, just so many. You can use a Google document, right? You can add graphs to that. You can add weather station information to that. You can take screenshots and put those in those documents really easily. You can use phone calls, texts, picture messages from your friends, right? These are all really easy to share. You can have a 5-minute conversation about what your friend saw, make that mental note or put it in your actual journal, right? The Utah Avalanche Center observation page is very similar to something the professionals use called InfoX. You don't have to be a professional to have access to all of this information and utilize it. You just have to take the time to read it and put it down in a way that it's easy for you to refer back to. That's why I really like to use my phone, right? It's fast and easy. It's really easy to take pictures or videos. People have this on them almost always. It's hard to think of the last time you left the house not carrying your cell phone, right? It's so easy to take pictures, to take videos, to take screenshots, to consult your journal anywhere, whether that's in the field. You can update it in the field. You can update it when you get home with all the photos you took throughout the day. It's just a really easy way to organize all this information. So I usually use my phone while I'm in the field to collect all this data. And then for me, I've found the best way is to put it into a presentation, usually because we're showing people, the snowpack as of, a certain point in the season. But the way I do this is I use a Google document. And so I just go to this Google document and I start saying, okay, in September, there were a few early dustings. I add some photos. I really like adding just screenshots because then I have the date and time of when it happened, the description of what was going on in the photo, right? These Google documents are nice because you can journal anywhere from your phone, from your computer, anywhere you can log into the internet. You can add screenshots easily. You can share it with your friends really easy by making sure who has access to it or just email them a copy. You can share it with your ski partners if you guys are all getting ready for a trip, right? You can share it with Ogden Avalanche via email or our website. Same thing with the Utah Avalanche Center. Or you can compile this and put it into their observation page. So the Utah Avalanche Center has an awesome resource that is their observation and archive page. You should already be reading the forecast every single day anyway. That's going to give you the information day by day that you need to know, kind of their bottom line. The thing I really like about this, let me grab my laser, is if you go up here to the main site, you can go to the observations and avalanches, select specifically by the region, And if you really wanted, you could select a date range too, but it's going to be in chronological order from the newest. So you go down, see who wrote it. If you click on it, it'll load it, tell you where to go. If you were going to go somewhere else that you hadn't been in the past, you can use this resource. Go here to the archives and you can look at former forecasts, or you can just keep scrolling down here to see more observations from the past. So the first thing I would say is make sure that you're regularly submitting observations on that website. That way tons of people have access to it. Send us a message on our Instagram or something like that if you want. Use our website. But once you're done, go through and put an observation down so that tons of people have that information. Then you want to look at the current ones, right? Then you want to also make sure you're looking at the past ones if you haven't built your season already. And if you haven't, now it's not too late. You can start today and build the season from the start. Go back into those early archives of what was happening in the forecast and then also in the observation. Check Instagram and look at people's previous posts to see what they were showing. It's a great resource, right? Especially if you're traveling somewhere else. Say you guys are going to go maybe spend a weekend at a yurt in Logan or something like that, and you really want that information, but you haven't been there. You can go to the Logan region on that observation page and pull all that information up and kind of build it as if you were following it for the from the beginning of the season. My other suggestion is to read these observations every single day. They are going to give you the most accurate representation between this and social media, blogs, everyone that's documenting what's happening in the snowpack and where they are. All this information compiled, right? Reading it every day is going to keep your mind in that right mindset to understand it. And it's also going to keep you up to date in your own snow journal. Next, we have weather stations. Weather stations are great resources for data. Tons of data on these web pages. There's links on the Ogden Avalanche website if you want to find out more. They're updated in real time. Most are updated every hour on the hour, right? Let's talk a little bit about accuracy. Some folks struggle with accuracy of these weather stations because occasionally the data comes skewed, right? So specifically when we're thinking about weather stations, knowing how they work or how they collect data really helps. When we're looking at this snow depth in inches, knowing that that's collected by a laser on top of the tower helps us. When we see that we go from 16 inches of total snow depth to 170, something went wrong, right? We didn't get that much snow in 1 hour from the hours of 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. And so when we're thinking that, what most likely happened is the lens that on that laser that measures the snow depth has been covered by frost, by a snowflake, maybe some snow blew into it or something like that. Then you can see that it kind of melts away and we're back to normal here. So knowing that that data can be skewed a little bit will help you know. You just have to think it out to make sure that, okay, did we really get over 100 inches of snow in 1 hour? Probably not. It's just something to keep in mind. So those weather stations also are in specific locations depending on what they're trying to measure. You're not going to put a snow depth instrument in an area where you're in a heavy wind deposition zone. So those snow stations, depending on what information they have, that location has been selected specifically for that. Keep that in mind as well. And then please leave them alone, right? In the summer, there's fences around these to get so that it keeps animals and people away from them. In the winter, those fences are usually buried. And so people will ski really close to them or maybe ski past them. This is really common, especially at the Cutler Ridge Trailhead or that kind of Cutler Ridge weather station, as the snow picks up, people will ski right under this. That really messes with the instrumentation, especially if we're talking snow depth. It changes the way that the snow settles around it later as we're looking at depth. So really just give these a wide berth. And if you see people that are close to them, maybe just kindly, and give them a friendly reminder or let them know that they might be damaging the information that's coming from these, or really we just want people to try and leave these alone as much as possible so that data is as accurate as possible. So as we think about it, as we're wrapping this up, we kind of want to go to our bottom line. What's our bottom line? Why are we keeping these snow and avalanche journals, right? And we want to do that to know where the unstable snow is. We want to track that weather throughout the season to know how it's affecting our snowpack so that we can stay safe and so that we can have fun. Thank you guys for all tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. I'll answer them through the chat or answer them here in just a second after this presentation. If you have any other questions, please shoot us an email on Instagram or Facebook. You can also go to ogdenavalanche.org and ask a question there. Keep your eyes peeled for a few more courses coming up. We have another one next Sunday that will be what's in your pack, what's worth the wait and what's not. Kind of a fun one there because everyone carries so many different things. So I'll give you kind of my 2 cents on what you should carry and what you shouldn't. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a great night. We'll see you in the Q&A after this. Thanks. Bye.
I will do it anyway. It's just little game we play. It feels good to get away. There is nothing else to say.
Hypno dancer, hypno dancer, hypno dancer, go hypno dancer, dancer, hypno dancer, hypno dancer, go hypno dancer, dancer, hypno dancer, hypno dancer, go hypno dancer, dancer, hypno dancer, hypno dancer, go hypno dancer.
Okay, looks like we don't really have very many questions for the evening, so we're going to go ahead and end there. Thank you guys all for tuning in, and look for some more of our stuff coming up here shortly. And just want to say to Paul, yeah, quite the dickens of a storm. Anyway, for now, this is the end of our presentation, and thank you guys all for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great night and stay safe out there. Cheers.
Can you feel the pain? See the mess and trouble in your brain. Anger you retain, pressure rocks you like a hurricane. Is it time for you to jump into the next train? Change of hand, make a stand. I can see your heart change. Wake up, no more nap, your turn is coming up. You feel lazy, but stop the fantasies and bubble dust. If you need to hear, go for it. I will teach you how to feel the things so close to you, connected all. Every day is a miracle. Connect back with the people and all the people you miss. Don't think you're invisible. Connect back with the people head. Would you text me from your rest bed? Running from the dead in the battle of cyberheads. You should think twice, cause they will make your brain melt. New device, better price, keep you feeling impressed. Stop it all, every day we'll live a miracle. Unpredictable, you don't need an upgrade anymore. Can't you see the link? Don't worry, I will teach you how to take the pill to feel the thrill and touch it all.